Hello, we're going to go over a few basic animation editing techniques here. First, make sure that you're set up to animate. I like this default panel layout, which is, I just click on it and it shows up. If I don't, it has a perspective view on top and the graph editor on the bottom. I like this because I can move around and read what I'm doing down here, and I can see my mistakes quickly. And you'll learn how to see your mistakes in the animation graph editor as you practice. I then make sure I'm in the animation module up here. If you're in the modeling class, you'll be usually using the polygons. Here we're using animation, and see how these controls change up here. I have a basic polygonal sphere, and I need to go to the frame that I want to put a keyframe on before I do any movement to the sphere. So I'm going to go to frame 1 and can position it with an S. I will make the keyframe. You'll notice that these will turn pink. If they don't turn pink, you did something wrong. Usually you didn't have the object selected. So I press S, and I'll see little tiny dots appear here. I'm going to go to 120, and I'm going to move it over. I'm going to press S. Notice I don't have auto keyframe on. That's a personal preference. You may decide that's the way you want to work. I find that I can make too many mistakes by having it. I will show you my technique for animating, and you may agree with me, or you may find that it's helpful. Just it's your own personal style. I'm going to avoid using it. I'll go to frame 60, and notice I have a couple flat lines, but my scale Y is going to pop up when I move it up, and I press S. Here we go. Oh, not scale Y, I'm sorry. My translate Y went to that. So I'm going to do Control Z so you can see that. See that? I'm going to press S. Boom. It's my translate Y. It moved the greatest distance in Y at that point, but very little in any other area. Like in X, it still went sideways. Now, interesting enough, if I Control Z and take away that keyframe, look at my translate X curve, and I'm going to delete that keyframe. Didn't change it that much, but it did put a keyframe there, which means when it hits it, there may be a slight delay or wobble as it goes forward again. I'm going to redo it. Keep it there. Notice there is a slight difference. Once I animate, I'm going to take that away by drawing with my left mouse button, hitting delete to straighten that out a little bit more. And I might decide that I don't want it to gently ease out and gently ease in as a robotic way. Maybe I'm going to want it to go straight into the next pose. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Know that all I did was set 3 keyframes to get the ball from one side up in the air to the other side. As a habit, as I animate, I want to check it out in all 4 views every once in a while, just to make sure I see what's going on. And I have to click each window to see it play in each window. So just try that out. All I did was set 3 keyframes. First thing I'm going to want to do, if this is all I want in my animation, and be aware I have to have the object clicked to see the curves. I'm going to go through here now and I'm going to clean it up. So there is movement in my translate X. There's movement in my translate Y. And view frame all. There is no movement in my translate Z. So I'm going to left mouse button, draw a box around it, and delete it. View frame all. I'm going to look at my X. No movement in it. Delete it. I know I didn't rotate or scale it. So I'm going to select those. And I'm going to delete those. Notice how my view changes every time I select something and say view frame all. It's a clue that your view will change every so often. A line may appear flat, but it will have movement on it if you take a closer inspection. So be careful when you make these choices. Now I know I only moved it from left to right, up and down. So that's left to right is my X, up and down is my Y. And I'm going to do view frame all. There's my X, there's my Y. If the sphere is selected, I see both. I want you now to play with these. I'm going to take this curve, the translate X, I'm going to make it look different. I'm going to play with these. And let's see how that changes my view of the ball here. Okay, this is what it looks like now. I play it backwards. This is forwards, just kind of gently rising, robotic. I'm going to try auto tangent. Didn't change it at all. There. Clamped, spline tangents, changed it to a pretty much straight line. Look at it now. Kind of a little gentler rise. Even more floaty. Let's try clamped. Not much difference there. There. This gives it a bit of a soft rise. This is going to be a dramatic difference. This is a step. Stepped is usually what you do when you do your first keyframes. It stays in the first position. Remember, I'm only doing the X frame. And then jumps to the last position. See that? Let me see it for a second. So if I put both of these to stepped, you'll see it better. See that? Jumped to that second frame and the third frame quickly. You'll see it. Boom. Generally, it's a point of contention. Everyone has a different preference, but I'll stick with the first. And then I'll change these as I need them. So now, the last thing I want you to really understand is how to edit things down here. Left mouse click and select a keyframe, and right click, you'll see that there's, on your mouse, you're going to see that there's extra controls. I can delete a frame. Look at that, disappeared off there, and the red tick disappeared off here. I'm going to go edit redo. Whoops. Undo, edit. There you go. I can go back here and I can copy it and then go over here and put it in and paste it. And look, there was no keyframe on the X, so it didn't have a frame to copy on the X. It only took the keyframe that existed on the Y and it put it over here, and that changed the animation. See how it changed the curve? Oh, and I have to change this off of stepped. So you can see the movement. Watch this video a few times, just practice things, get to know where tools are. I'll eventually explain to you why and when to use them. Just want you to know that they exist. You'll be asking me often where they are again. It's okay. That's the point of learning, is just to figure all this stuff out, and you'll need to repeat it. A very interesting tool exists where I can left mouse click and then hold down my shift key, then hold down my left mouse. I can highlight an entire area I want, or just a little bit. Then I can go to these little corners and scale it up and down and watch how it changes my curves. I'm a liar. Ah, there, see that? I'm going to do it again so you see the change. It only affects the keyframes that exist on that curve. So you see the little red ticks are being moved around. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to need a left mouse button, hold down the shift key, and hold down my left mouse button at the same time. Pick everything up. Now I'm going to shorten my entire curve. See that? So what would be nice with this simple animation is if you just play with this for a little bit. You got here by going right click on your mouse. You're going to have the opportunity to do something called a play blast as well. Play blast is an interesting control. It gives you a wireframe movie of what you just did. On your computers at school, I believe AVI is the best way to go. QuickTime gives a slanted view, so if you have a problem, make sure you're on AVI. Don't worry about your encoding. Quality 70% is fine. Scale 50%. Now that makes it half the size of your window, so if you want the full size of this window, you want to be at 100%, but usually 0.5 is good. Frame padding, those are leading zeros. I can talk about that later, but keep it to 4. And you want to save it to a file, so I click that, and I call the movie, ball test. And it's going to ask me where I want to save it. And I'm going to save it in Documents, Maya Projects, 11 Rig, version 1.2. Okay, and I'll just cancel out of there. Well, I'll see this, ball test. Save. So now I play blast it. Look at that, it makes a little mini movie. And it'll pop up on my desktop. And I can play it. And if I want to search for it, I just go to that breadcrumb that I placed it in to find that movie. So remember to save it. That's enough for your first week or two that you understand those controls and where they are. There will be many more to learn, but I want you to understand the relationship between these curves and your channel box. And in your channel box, you get to it. Sometimes you're going to have your attribute editor open. That's not needed. You don't need your attribute editor. Just click it again and you'll see your channel box. These relationships equal the relationship going on here. So let me move this in the Z. The Z is this Z here. It's forward. Look how translate Z changes from 0.263 to another value when I pull it. See that? So if I go over here and I change this to 34, it's going to be somewhere entirely different. See that? And put it at 0. So I can interactively type where I want this to be and set a keyframe as well. I'm going to show you one more thing, and then this will be good for like 2 or 3 weeks of your class. But notice I'm only ending up with these 2 curves in this pink area. So it's kind of a waste of my time to have to delete all these if I know I'm only want animation here. So I'm going to go to frame 50. And I'm going to say at frame 50, I want to set a keyframe. If I press S, I'm going to get all these curves again, and I'm going to have to clean them out again. So a better way to do this is to go right click over Translate Z and say Key Selected. Then go to my next frame, change my Z value. See how it's changing there? I'll put it back here. And I'm on a new frame. I go right click, Key Selected. And look at that. I got a new curve. Only one extra curve was added, not all the rest. You're going to want to use S to make all your keyframes in the front, or automatic keyframe. And what I mean by all your keyframes in the front, when you make your key poses. Some folk prefer to have auto keyframe on. Some folk prefer to press S key for everything. It's your choice, how you work. Depends on if you're the type of person who likes to go back and fiddle with stuff and move forward and travel around the timeline. You've just met my dogs. That's enough for right now. I'll make a few more in the future as we progress through the course. But practice all that and see that you understand the relationship between this line and your object.